Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second. What if the next great move of God, the real breakthrough, the kind that sparks genuine transformation and multiplication, doesn't start with a big sermon from a famous pulpit?
Yeah, or like a massive, well-funded program, or even the perfect online platform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What if it starts, well, what if it just starts with a single person?
Yeah.
That's the really intriguing question at the heart of this deep dive today.
Totally. We're diving deep into a concept called the person of peace, often shortened to POP. And we're drawing from some really powerful insights in the book Gatekeepers of the Gospel by Chris R. Vlassis.
Right. So our mission here is to really chew on these excerpts, pull out the core wisdom, and see how this idea, which, as you said, is deeply rooted in Scripture, how it offers a potentially, revolutionary shift in how we think about gospel outreach, about seeing movements begin.
And the core argument Vlassis makes is pretty compelling. He suggests that these strategic breakthroughs, real kingdom expansion, they often depend less on our amazing strategic planning.
And more on finding these specific, divinely prepared individuals.
Exactly. These aren't just random nice people. They're presented as like relational gateways, people who genuinely welcome you in the message you're carrying.
It's fascinating. So what exactly is this person of peace? You said not just someone nice.
Right. The book defines them as a spirit-prepared individual. Think of them almost like a divine doorway, strategically placed by God to give you access to communities, cultures, networks, places you might never reach otherwise.
A divine doorway. I like that. So how do you recognize one? How do you spot a pop out in the wild? The source material seems to break it down into 3 key characteristics. They seem simple, but maybe profound.
Yeah, they are. First, they are welcoming. And this isn't just like surface-level politeness.
Okay.
It's a genuine openness.
Yeah.
They receive you, the messenger, first.
Yeah?
And they're open to hearing the message you bring. There's a sort of relational favor already there.
Okay, welcoming. Got it. What's the second?
Second, they are receptive. And this is really critical. Their heart is described as already tender, already sensing something. The book suggests you aren't really convincing them from scratch.
So it's not about argumentation.
Less about that, more like you're confirming a stirring, maybe a hunger that God has already planted in them. You're sort of walking into a space God's already been working in.
Wow, okay. Welcoming, receptive. And the third characteristic?
Third, they are influential. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean famous or powerful by, worldly standards.
Right, not a CEO or a mayor necessarily.
Exactly, but influential within their own network. They naturally connect you to their family, their friends, their community, maybe their culture. The book pointedly calls them connectors, not containers.
Connectors, not containers, meaning they don't just hold on to the message themselves.
Precisely. They become conduits. It flows through them to others.
Okay, so those 3 things. Welcoming, receptive, influential. And this leads to what the book calls the critical insight, right? The thing that kind of flips the script.
Yes. This is huge. You don't create a person of peace, you discover them.
You discover them.
Yeah. You don't have to spend all your energy trying to convince them. The idea is they're already leaning in, they're already receptive, and you don't need to, batter down closed doors. They are the door that God has already opened.
That's the part that really hit me. It's not about just trying harder. It's about seeing things differently.
Yeah.
And this isn't presented as some clever modern marketing technique for faith, is it?
No, not at all. It's framed as a fundamental kingdom principle. Something hardwired into Jesus' own rhythm, his own method, when he sent out his disciples.
Right, right. You look at the Gospels.
Exactly. Look at Luke 10, verses 1 to 6 specifically. But you see echoes in Matthew 10 and really patterns all through the book of Acts.
When Jesus sent out the 72?
Yes. He didn't give them a detailed 5-point program or a budget for, building a platform or a slick marketing strategy.
Yeah.
His primary instruction was essentially, when you enter a town, search for a person of peace. Find that person.
Find the person. Not build the thing first, not try to gather the crowd first, but find the person.
Wow. And the early church seems to have really operated this way. The source highlights some fantastic examples. Think about Lydia in Acts 6.
The merchant, right, by the river.
That's her. A businesswoman? Certainly not, like a religious leader in the traditional sense. But the text says her heart was open. There's that receptivity. And what happened? Her whole household was baptized. That's influence. She's a connector.
Okay, yeah. Who else?
Or Cornelius in Acts 10.
Yeah.
A Roman centurion. Definitely an outsider to the Jewish community at the time, but described as devout, already praying.
Receptive again.
Totally. And when Peter finally gets there and shares the gospel, his entire household and his close friends receive it. Huge influence.
And the Samaritan woman at the well, does she fit?
Absolutely. John 4. She was marginalized in many ways, but her encounter with Jesus, it led her straight back to her village saying, "Come see." And many believe because of her testimony. That's influence. She was a gateway.
What's striking, as you said, is that none of these were the established religious gatekeepers of the day. They were just people. A businesswoman, a soldier, a woman with a complicated past.
But the source calls them key holders in the kingdom. Relational gateways.
And this ties into how the early church grew so rapidly, doesn't it? Especially after persecution scattered believers, like in Acts 8.
Exactly, Acts 8 verses 1 to 4. It wasn't just the apostles strategically planting churches in major cities, though that happened too. It was also, ordinary believers scattered by persecution, just going wherever they ended up.
And finding people.
Finding people. Individuals through whom whole networks, families, communities suddenly opened up to the message. Velazquez calls this the forgotten strategy of the kingdom.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit challenging for how we often operate today. The book seems to hold up a mirror to our usual ways of thinking about success in ministry or mission.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
We live in a culture that's just obsessed with scale, right?
Right.
Visibility, metrics, follower counts.
The bigger the stage, the more eyeballs, the better. Success equals magnitude.
Right. The source literally calls it the myth of magnitude. And it argues that this myth can actually blind us. We get so focused on building our own platforms, trying to attract the masses,
That we miss what God might already be doing through specific individuals.
Precisely. True mission, movement, multiplication, the book argues pretty strongly, aren't primarily the result of our human effort or mass outreach campaigns or even brilliant institutional strategies. They flow from discerning and then partnering with these spirit-prepared individuals.
That feels like a radical shift. I mean, it moves away from thinking about mission primarily as a numbers game. How many people did we get in the room? How big is our email list?
Yeah, it shifts it towards a relational, spirit-guided pursuit. It's a move away from trying to engineer programmatic growth.
And towards just aligning with how God actually sparks movements.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Organically. Yes. And it's a shift away from the constant pressure to try harder, to perform, that striving feeling, towards the freedom of discerning and aligning with what God has already started.
So instead of desperately seeking an audience, any audience,
You're calmly, prayerfully discerning whom God has already prepared for you for the message.
the book lists some symptoms of misaligned mission. I found these pretty convicting, actually. Things like being incredibly busy but not seeing genuine lasting fruit.
Yeah, or attracting crowds, but really struggling to build deep, authentic community.
Or speaking loudly, maybe having a platform, but feeling like the message isn't truly being heard. It's not landing deep down.
And that exhausting feeling, maybe you felt it, that the weight of the whole mission somehow rests on your charisma, your effort, your ability to keep all the plates spinning.
Yes. So the liberating truth here is
The liberating truth the book suggests is this. It's often not about adding more effort or trying harder. It's about aligning your efforts with God's prior work. It reframes mission. It begins not just with plan, production, performance.
but
Perception, seeing what God is doing. Presence, being relationally present with that person of peace. And partnership, joining God and the poppy in what they're doing in their network.
and success looks totally different then. It's not about the dashboard numbers or visibility or going viral.
No. Success is redefined. It's measured more by relational depth, by your spiritual discernment. Are you actually hearing and seeing where the Spirit is leading? And by maybe strategic surrender, being willing to follow where God is inviting you to partner, even if it looks small initially.
Okay, so this really does change the game for you, the listener, right? No matter who you are or what you do, how does it play out practically?
Well, it means shifting your focus. Instead of always trying to create opportunities out of thin air.
You start looking for signs of divine preparation that are already around you. Discerning.
Exactly. And it changes how you might pray. Instead of just, God, bless my big event, maybe it's more like a daily focused prayer. Spirit, lead me today. Show me the person of peace you've prepared.
And then what? If you think you found someone who seems welcoming, receptive, maybe influential in their circle,
You slow down. That's key. Our culture pushes speed and scale, but this requires relational investment. You go deep with that person, not just wide trying to reach everyone superficially.
that focus on investing in the few It sounds counterintuitive, but the source connects it back to Jesus, right? His time with the 12, and even more closely with the three.
Yeah, exactly. It's about multiplying through deep investment in the right people, the prepared people. It pushes back against that constant chasing of the many.
So it helps move you from just like programmatic busyness, running endless activities, filling the calendar.
To real relational clarity.
Yeah.
Knowing who God is highlighting for you to invest in right now. And the idea is that investing in that right person, the pauvre,
Yeah.
that's investing in what lasts, what multiplies organically through their network.
The book uses some powerful descriptions for a pop, doesn't it? Like leader in disguise.
Yeah, leader in disguise, gatekeepers, catalyst, even a movement waiting to happen. It's potent language.
And it's not just for like missionaries in remote villages, right? The applicability seems really broad.
Incredibly broad. The source gives examples across all kinds of contexts. Urban centers, rural towns, diaspora communities, even, interestingly, digital spaces.
Digital spaces.
Like online.
Yeah, think about it. Conversations happening in coffee shops, sure, but also maybe in comment threads or online forums. Refugee camps and rural villages, yes, but also maybe your workplace or your neighborhood. The principle transcends the specific context.
So it's weaving together theology with what? Sociology?
Kind of. Theological insight, but also integrating practical understanding from things like social network theory, how influence actually spreads, and cultural intelligence, all guided by spirit-led discernment. It feels really relevant for our fractured but also hyper-connected world.
So it doesn't matter if you identify as a missionary or a pastor, or maybe you're a lay person, a business leader, a stay-at-home parent. The invitation is the same. That's the idea. The invitation is to see people through spirit-tuned eyes, to start spotting the doors God has already cracked open, the ones maybe others are overlooking because they're looking for the big stage.
And to walk where Jesus is already waiting.
Exactly. To partner with what he's already doing.
Ultimately, then, this isn't some brand new technique. It's positioned as, what? A return.
Yeah, very much a return. A return to the maybe raw, relational, spirit-led way of Jesus and the early church. The ancient strategy for modern missions.
And the posture it calls for is quite different. It's not about fighting for attention in a noisy world, trying to carve out your space.
No, it's more about following the Spirit's quiet nudges. It's not about trying to force open doors that seem locked shut.
But about noticing, discerning, and then walking through the ones God has already prepared and is holding open through a person of peace.
Because, as the source material puts it so well, the kingdom often moves at the speed of relationship.
The speed of relationship. I like that. So, wrapping this up, what's the main takeaway for you listening? I think the core message from Gatekeepers of the Gospel is this really compelling call.
Yeah, it's that breakthrough. Real multiplication often hinges on finding and then partnering with the person of peace.
It's an invitation, really, to shift your whole perspective away from chasing numbers and feeling that constant pressure to perform.
And towards the, maybe, freedom. The freedom of discerning the doors God is opening and partnering peacefully, relationally, with the people he has prepared.
And I love how the book itself puts it. It says something like, this book will not give you a formula, which is good because formulas rarely work perfectly.
Right. It continues. But it will give you a lens, a posture, a set of practices that align with how the Spirit is already moving.
A lens, a posture, practices, that feels achievable.
It leaves us with this really powerful, maybe slightly unsettling final thought to ponder. What if the person of peace God has prepared for you, the one who holds the key to a network or a community you deeply care about, what if they're already right in front of you?
Just waiting. Waiting for you to notice, to engage, to walk through the door they're holding open for whatever God wants to do next.